our work right now on the planet is to bring honoring and sanctity to the invisible just as much as the visible. The invisible results are things like feeling good, things like feeling connected, things like our health, our well-being, a feeling of joy, pleasure.
Embodiment can't be faked. Once you're in an open state where you actually can see through a clear lens, you know, you're not clouded by fear, you're not clouded by the amygdala, you're not clouded by society's news and all the fear-based stuff, and you're just with you. Then you get to decide where you think we actually are.
It is possible to navigate pain with grace.
Energy is information. We're here to experience the full spectrum.
That worthiness is hard for you. There's nothing wrong with you. It is a muscle that we kind of have to learn how to access. You are not disempowered, and you have power in every area of your life all the time.
I believe that chronic illness is an opportunity for us to heal.
Health, it's a choice. Listening to your body if you so choose.
My prayer for the world would be that they would know the infinite love of God.
Aloha and welcome to the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast, formerly known as the Embodied Healing Self Podcast, with your host, jenmons. Join me each week for soul-inspired, conscious conversations around awakening to your soul purpose through 5-element well-being. Thank you so much for joining in. Welcome back to the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast. Thank you so much again for joining in. It has been such a fun experience over the last few weeks as we are winding down. We are week 9 of the 10 weeks of our prosperity experience. So if you're listening here for the first time, I'm Jen Mons of the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast. I've been bringing you conscious conversations since March of 2019, formerly the Embodied Healing Self Podcast, and our conversations are through 5-element wellth, or WELLTH, physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, and financial. And this 10-week series is all about the relationship to the financial piece, financial freedom, which I believe, especially in the world that we're living in today, allows us to live well because it gives us choice. And so you're here because you're curious about healing your relationship to money. Over the last 8 weeks, just to recap, we created our prosperity roadmap, identified common prosperity blocks, really got clear on our relationship to the 5 elements of wealth. We went through Awaken our money origin story, and identified our money saboteur through mindset and our blocks. We created our empowering money story through money behavior, and we did a money date completion letter. And then after that, week 4, we talked about attuning to the frequency of wealth through financial wellness goals, really creating a relationship, a cyclical relationship also built on trust, because prosperity is embodied trust. And on week 5, we talked about the embodiment of receiving. Many of our blocks in financial abundance are really about receiving. So it's also how it correlates to intimacy, into me, I see, but also in love and relationships. We got clarity on how well do we receive even compliments, supports? Like, do we actually give ourselves the opportunity, or do we really believe that we have to do it all and take care of everything and wear that badge of honor? And then we moved into amplifying your prosperity consciousness through your money love language. And after that, alchemizing your worth to wealth, really identifying your fears, blocks, wounds, again on a deeper level, and your gifts, and really transmuting to making the choice of leading and living our life from our gifts, not our wounds, into week 8, which was letting your passion show you prosperity, getting clear on the things that light you up and bring you joy, and how can I bring more joy and radiance into my life, and let that be part of the energy of prosperity and also part of my legacy. So this week we're talking about leaving a legacy of generational wealth. And this can be WELLTH or wealth, WEALTH, as in money. Because the energy of prosperity is really both. And remember, a couple of weeks ago I talked about how a lot of our relationship with money is really centered on how we want to feel. Like how we want to feel in our life. It's an external, tangible thing that has nothing to do with us, our value, or who we are, yet it's a measure, it's an energy of what we allow ourselves to be paid to do for the work that we do. So it is an energy exchange. It's an energy that allows us to amplify our voice and our values into the world because we are able to take it and transmute it by creating other things, experiences into the world through our service. And it also gives us freedom and choice to live the life we want to live, travel the way we want to, nourish ourselves the way that we want to, live in the place that we want to. And so there's really, I've really discovered, and one of the reasons I became so passionate about this is because I noticed that so many times women had the limiting belief that they didn't have the financial resources to invest in themselves. They just weren't able to shift to that growth mindset of how can I be resourceful and find the resources in order to invest in something that I really truly want for myself. Or it was easier for them to invest in a certification versus investing in their personal growth, which maybe would have given them clarity on whether they really needed the certification, because sometimes women are stuck in the cycle of getting certifications, and I am an over-certified person, so I speak from a place of experience, but just because they believe it provides them value, they believe that they need it in order to be paid well or do what they want to do in the world. So lots of interesting conversations over the past few weeks, tons of resources, tons of journaling prompts, tons of invitations. I shared my journal that's available with you. I'll be publishing the Prosperity Journal in the beginning of 2023, which will be a 90-day experience all about healing your relationship to money. So stay tuned for that. And so I'm getting so much great feedback. And again, many of you are saying that you have to pause and rewind and listen to several episodes over and over again. And so what I want to invite you to consider is joining our prosperity course and membership. We will be we'll be opening that up again for enrollment in January. So if you're really loving this and you're trying to get as much as you can and squeeze it in, you know the value of it because you're putting the time into it. Why not allow yourself to be supported to expand even more with coaching and your personal experience and 10 times the value you're getting on this podcast? So if this is aligning for you, I'd love to invite you just to consider joining that prosperity experience. This week, kind of digging a little bit deeper into that deeper why. I think for many of us, I know it's part of my why, which is leaving a legacy. Oh, legacy. I have really learned to love that word. I think I used to get a little cringe at the word. Like, who do you think you are to leave a legacy? Well, every person here is a legacy. You are divinely created to be uniquely you. The simple fact that you are breathing and alive is your sole purpose. It is not what you do. It is who you are that has the ability and potential to change, to create positive change in the world, I should say, and that is enough. And there is an opportunity for those that feel called to go a little deeper, to continue the journey of expansion. And the more you choose to invest in your own personal development and growth, the more you will expand in all areas of life. You'll expand your consciousness, and you'll expand possibility and opportunity and depth and connection the more that you are willing to be curious about. And remember that your sacred no is just as important when you're building in a life of wealth, or wealth, as in WELL, or financial wealth. Your sacred no is just as important as your aligned yes. I cannot emphasize that enough. I am not telling you to come on here and say yes to everything, but really truly knowing that your no is just as important as your yes, and getting clear on the aligned actions. Because where we feel resistance is often the path. I know, like, it's once you've committed to working through and identifying the things that are no longer serving you, which is where you feel the resistance, when something feels really hard, the best, such a great feeling, I want to say the best feeling in the world, I guess, in my opinion, is when you move through that. Because on the other side of that is just like pure freedom and joy. Because the thing that you were afraid of, that you thought was holding you back, is no longer has power over you, which is super awesome. So, and when we talk about money, the interesting thing is a way that I have witnessed that works to move through scarcity is to take the risk and trust something else. Whatever you're doing isn't working. And so the only way to really break through that is to give yourself the opportunity to take a risk to invest in some way in something, time or money, but probably money if you have major scarcity issues, is to take that risk, because then you break the pattern. Because your scarcity has been keeping you stuck in what you can't do, being curious about what you can do, and shifting that mindset into how am I going to pay for this, to how can I allow myself to receive that amount so that I can then pay for this, which is a totally different mindset. So leaving a legacy, and then we're also going to talk about generational wealth. And I have the feeling I'm speaking to a lot of you here when we think about the generation that we are. So I'm 45, okay? So as my kids would say, like, you were born in the 19th century, but I think technically my husband pointed out it's the 20th century. But yes, born in 1977. So for many of us, our grandparents went through the Depression, and our parents were baby boomers. And now we are living in the age of, like, there's too much of everything, like surplus, right? Whereas like the Depression, there was nothing. I think my grandmother had like 5 outfits. And then our parents probably didn't have as much as we have now. And many of us, I know myself included, our parents didn't have very much. And so then even when we were children, we probably had more than they did, but nowhere near as much as our children do, if we've already broken that pattern, which many of us have. The challenging thing is that a lot of us have broken that pattern, but we did it through really, really hard work. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but what if there's another way? What if we can still enjoy the abundance and the fruits of life and time with our family without losing our health and our marriage and ourself in the process? Which I feel like for my generation and maybe a little bit older, not so much the younger generation, but I do notice that when we talked about prosperity blocks, a lot of women my age or older really had to break through the belief that they had to work super hard to earn good money, which of course was one of mine, but I will tell you that I financially make at least twice way more money than I did corporate, and I work less than half the time that I did. So I have broken my own belief and doing work that I love. So it is possible. So we're going to talk about the 4 levels of financial freedom. So this is probably really geared more towards a person who's willing and curious about what it might look like to either complement their financial income in some way through real estate or creating a fun company on the side, like even a coffee food truck or something, who really wants to expand their level of financial income through a place of joy, either as kind of a side gig to their current corporate job or somebody who's stepping into retirement. So I have a couple of clients that are in that space that are retiring from their long-term, say, career as a lawyer or officer in the military or whatever, and really stepping into work that they love. This show is really probably a little bit more for you, but I would invite everybody to listen in because you just never know what it might ignite inside of you. And yeah, explore what might be possible when we create a blueprint of generational wealth and a legacy to leave behind. Because I keep thinking, and I've talked about this in our prosperity course, and I want to invite you to consider that you're going to be somebody's ancestor someday. So when we think about the stories of our grandparents and what they had to go through, right? Like, so my grandparents went through multiple wars, world wars, Vietnam War, just crazy stuff. Depression, disease. Okay, so then what our kids went through a pandemic. But what do I want my next multiple generations to believe about their ancestral wisdom? What do I want them to take away? What do I want them to take with them? How do I want to break karmic patterns? So we do this emotionally, right? Some people come from long lines of abuse or alcoholism and they're able to break that, and they just decide they're going to break it for their kids. Well, the financial piece is another thing that we can break. And I know both my husband and I decided that many, many years ago, that we wanted to create a lot more opportunity for our family. My husband, I would say, was way more passionate about it in the beginning than I was. I was raised in a military family, never had anything extra. We lived on the base, but had everything I needed. So it felt very safe and secure, but there was never like abundance. We never traveled. We never did family vacations or anything like that. But, it was normal and, had hand-me-down clothes and things like that. But I felt like I had everything I needed. My husband grew up with a little bit less. He had a single mom. She shares with me how hard she had to work, to exchange, like, for babysitting and for money. And, they got a lot of support through systems in place to support single mothers from the government. And so we agreed and decided, and we met at a military academy that was funded by the government so that our parents didn't have to pay college tuition, but then we had to join the military. So when we talk about stories, we came from a place of, when I asked that question, what decisions did you make because of the financial situation? Like, that was a decision that I made because of the financial situation. It was free. I was the oldest of 3. I knew that I could do it. I was interested in it. I didn't want to have college loans and college debt. And so it's why I made that choice. And yeah, so it's something to think about. We wanted to create more for our family, and we have. So the 4 levels of financial freedom are, the first level is employee, which is where many of us start, many of us are, okay? So if you're an employee, you're working for somebody else for a paycheck, either you're hourly or salary. I quite honestly don't know what I think is better, because when I worked salary corporate, it just meant I worked a lot more hours. And that's where most of us start out, and most of us stay there. And if you want to expand your level of financial freedom, then the next level would be to consider becoming self-employed. So that was a choice that I made, I guess, in 2009. I left corporate and I went back to school for a coaching certification, decided to completely alter course. I was an engineer before, and started doing business as myself, just health coaching for many, many years, teaching fitness. It's kind of where I started way back in 2009. So the second level is to become self-employed. And then the third level of financial freedom is to become a business owner. So this is a shift I made in 2018. So I really shifted my mindset to not just have a coaching practice or hobby, I should say. I probably made like 20 grand a year or less for the first, 2000, well, probably for the first 8 years of my coaching business. So I was working a lot, but not working full time because I was raising young kids and getting paid hourly and wasn't super sustainable. Just doing it because I loved it, but didn't really have the mindset of being a business owner. And I had a business coach in 2018 who really was just like, you don't have the mindset of a business owner. You just have a coaching practice. Like, are you ready to be a business owner? And so that was really my first shift into creating a CEO mindset. But I knew that when I was going to do it, I was going to do it in a way that I wanted to let go of the hustle and the overwhelm of my work behavior, my work ethic, which really came from a place of seeking validation and wanting to do well. I loved getting recognized for good results, if I'm being honest. And now the only person that I needed approval from was me, because I was the business owner, and that could go in my favor, or that could mean that I work myself to the ground. And so I started kind of almost working myself into the ground because I had no boundaries of hours and I worked from home. I had a second health crisis in 2014. And that was like the second wake-up call. It's like, you didn't learn it the first time. And I was doing the thing that I loved at the time, which was health coaching, and I was eating super healthy. But again, it was like, this is when I really shifted into breath work, meditation, became a yoga teacher, breathwork facilitator, certified life coach, and started expanding into the other elements of our well-being just beyond the physical body, and really realizing that it was more than just the physical health. So the third level of financial freedom is becoming a business owner. Maybe at this point in time you're an LLC, or you have contractors or employees that you pay, such as I do. You create more income so you can create more of an impact. And I don't really think there's maybe necessarily a financial number attached to this. It's more along the lines of how your business operates and what you provide into the world. And then the fourth level to financial freedom, which is the one I'm currently moving into, is investor. So investor is not a spender. So if you haven't listened to the podcast episode, conscious creator or consumer, are you in, I can't remember the name of it, are you in consumer consciousness or creator consciousness? In other words, are you a conscious investor or an unconscious spender? Because money is an energy. It's a vehicle for change, for transformation. What you put your time and money into expands. Think of money as fertilizer. Where you sprinkle it in your life, that area of your life expands. If you invest in yourself, you expand, you grow. So I would invite you to ask yourself, how do I invest in myself? Do I have a gym membership, a yoga membership? Do I invest in healthy foods? Or am I all about investing in my image, like how I look, my clothes, my car, my house? Because what you invest in is what you're saying your values are. And so last week we said, like, what are your top 5 values? Your values should be aligned with your schedule and your bank account. Period. How you spend your time and your money, it reflects what your true values are. So if you say you have these values, if you say you value health, but you're not going to the gym or yoga and you're partying with your friends every weekend, well, yeah, I'm not so sure you actually really value your health. I think you want to, but I don't think you're aligned to your own values. So this is where we get super clear, like taking radical self-responsibility, taking ownership for your life, and asking myself, like, what saboteur comes up around this? And when there's an opportunity to invest in myself, am I the saver? Am I the free spirit? Like, I just think, oh, it'll just magically happen. Am I the saver and I have $20,000 in my bank account, but I'm not willing to invest $5,000 in myself? Am I the martyr who just lets myself be taken advantage of? Am I the tyrant that tries to control everything? So maybe I say yes, but then I'm like, almost like looking for the way out. Like I'm trying to like I'm doing it with regret. I'm like a regretful investor. I mean, these are all like really big takeaways and big aha moments. Is like asking yourself, where am I investing in my life? And I'm talking about investor in terms of allowing your financial income to expand your values into the world, but also create potential growth of financial income into your life. And if you could do that, where would you do that? Would you invest in real estate? My husband and I just last week finished paying off our retirement property in Hawaii, and it felt really good. It was a huge investment that we made back in 2003. We had a 20-year loan, so we paid it off a year and a half early. And it feels really good to know that our dream 2 acres in Hawaii, ocean view, totally amazing, is totally paid for. It was just like it was such a good feeling. And so one of the ways that we've chosen to invest is that way. In my last prosperity course, one of the women, actually 2 women in my course, were investing in properties at that time and other currencies as well. They were both actually, a lot of what we were working through, these particular 2 women, was breaking down the belief that we had to work really hard to receive income. And so they both chose to invest like in other countries and also here, but they were at that financial level where they were willing and able to do so. Because the legacy is about creating something also that we can pass down to our children. So our goal, my husband and I, is to have this house that we have in Florida, which is amazing and beautiful, and a lovely house near the beach, paid for, and also our house in Hawaii paid off debt-free by the age of 55, which is our retirement age, because he can retire and maximize his retirement then, and I'll be paid through my books and speaking at that point in time. No longer coaching or hosting retreats, but really just doing the things that I want to. And so the key word here is investing. Investing is an energy where you consciously choose what you want to expand in your life beyond just you. So you start thinking about your children, you start thinking about your community, you start thinking about what you want to leave behind. And gathering or allowing streams of income to flow in so that you can do that, because you get to choose. Some people are really into cars. They buy a new car every few years. I've had my Subaru, the same Subaru, for 15 years. I just put $4,000 in it because I don't want to buy a new car. Now, when and if I ever get to, or I shouldn't say if, but one of the things I have said that I would celebrate when I become a 7-figure business owner is I'll buy myself that Tesla that I've always wanted, because I don't like to pump gas. So, I have that as a goal. I'm not attached to it, but I'm not really the type of person to buy a new car. We did buy an adventure van a year ago, which probably was the same price as that Tesla. So you can clearly see that I invest in experiences, versus like material things. So you just kind of ask yourself, like, what are your values? How do I invest in them? Are my values aligned with where I put my time and my money? So the 4 levels of financial freedom, again, are employee, self-employed, business owner, and then investor. So investor is the person that really takes business owner to the next level and then begins investing outside of their business into other people, into opportunities, because you've created enough financial income to be able to do that, and then think about what it provides for your children. So one of the things I'm super proud of in the last year is that my older daughter decided that she wanted to attend this international college prep boarding school in the state of Hawaii to finish high school, and it was way more expensive than any college that I know. And my goal was to at least pay for half of the tuition, which I am almost complete in doing. It was a really huge financial opportunity for us. So I say that to say that that was part of my why. Like, why do I love working for myself? Because I love time freedom. And then I also love the flexibility and the ability that when I want to generate more income, I know that I can do that. But I've also worked on all the blocks that show up before that. And, you know, that's the stuff you have to do before you get here. So my invitation to you this week is to ask yourself, what is my bigger vision? What is my bigger vision for myself and my family? So last week we asked, what am I going to stand for in the world? And why does this matter to me? The question this week is what footprint do I want to leave behind? What legacy do I want to leave, teach, or be remembered for? You could create an event. You could create a cookbook. You could write a book. Create some art. And the next question is, what does the path to create a legacy look like for me? Because it's different for everybody. You know, somebody started in an event that you attend many years ago. Somebody was the first female fighter pilot. Somebody was the first woman to surf pipeline, like I talked about before. Somebody was the first woman to do this, to do that. What do you want your legacy to look like? Somebody, if my family never had property that was passed down, but my goal is to leave property that we can pass on to our children, because I think, investing in property it's a resource. And so that's part of what my husband and I have decided is important to us. And then asking yourself, what is the most important thing I can do right now towards creating my legacy? Because I'm 45, so if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably anywhere from 25 to or older than me. And now's the time. Now's the time to take action towards creating that footprint, that legacy. And then what is the most important thing for me to stop doing? Spending Black Friday shopping. Let's just go there, right? Instead of spending mindlessly on Black Friday shopping, no judgment. Maybe, but what would it look like if I chose to invest differently? Save that $2,000 and invest in myself for my children. Or put it in an account to save to buy that 20 acres in Idaho or something. So what's the most important thing I can do right now? What's the most important thing for me to stop doing? Where am I ready to invest more time and energy and resources to continue the path of my desired blueprint or legacy? And then the homework for you tonight is to go back to last week and read out loud or potentially rewrite your devotion legacy statement and set the intention to review again in the future and make changes as you grow. One of the things that I've shared multiple times that I love to do is I have been writing a letter to myself at the end of every year since 2017. And I keep them. And it's really awesome because we're always doing better than we think. So this devotion legacy statement could be the start of you just writing what you want for yourself. And then the next year you get to review like, oh, I said I wanted to do this. I actually invested in myself. I bought that yoga studio membership. I got rid of all of the toxic shampoos and conditioners and deodorants and makeup in my house and decided that I would pay a little extra for organic, non-toxic stuff in my house. That's the change I made in my life. Or I decided to stop wasting so much money on alcohol and decided that I would instead use that money for supplements or healthy food or a breathwork course or a coach or an integrative doctor or acupuncture. And it's really rewarding to go through and look at the changes that you've made so you can celebrate yourself. And celebration is exactly what we're going to do next week. We're going to get into the celebration and the integration of all that you have taken away with you over the past 9 weeks. Thank you so much again for joining in. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. And I am wishing each of you many blessings and a very prosperous 2023 year. And if you're looking for more support or to expand in your own relationship to money and prosperity, receiving and just growing and thriving in life, we will have an opportunity for you to join us for a complimentary prosperity experience in January. So stay tuned for that. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Aloha.
The content of this podcast is to educate, inspire, and inform you of pathways to an embodied healing self. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice from your medical doctor, therapist, registered dietitian, or nutritionist for any questions you may have regarding your diagnosis or condition.
Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining again each week on the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast, formerly the Embodied Healing Self Podcast. I am so deeply honored to share this space with you every week. I know that there are many other podcasts that you could be tuning into, and our community is expanding and growing more with each new episode. I'd like to invite you to come on over to jenmons.com/tribe and receive some of the wonderful gifts that we have for you. A meditation bundle, energetic alignment, 5-element wealth, prosperity consciousness. We have a ton of different gifts available for you to enjoy. Now, we have one small favor to ask. In order for this podcast to get into the hearts and souls of like and light-minded people, we need your support. We would love your review and would love it if you'd head on over to jenmons.com/podcast to leave a review or leave one on iTunes so that we can continue to share the love beyond out into the world. Thank you so much again for joining in. We'll see you next week.